Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my victorious partners in crime, Anthony Prohaska and Aaron Quinn. Aaron, what time is it?
Victory. Uncle Jumbo's time. I'm out Uncle Jumbo still. I got to get over there and get some.
Our man, Low Buffa Ceilings, hooked me up with a shipment. It's going to be beautiful.
Bombsicle.
That's cool. I'll just drink this water.
Guys, last week was so depressing getting on here and doing this show with you guys. What a difference a week makes. Look at us. Look at us.
Look at us.
Coming up for another blowout.
Look at us.
This might be this is the most stretch of blowouts that we've been able to talk about, Greg. I was just saying that to my wife today, like, how many has it been now? 4 blowouts for the year? This is fun.
Yeah, a couple where I was already doing like my full-on prep that I normally do between the game and the show starting. I started at mid fourth quarter today that I went through. I had the right shirt on today.
There you go.
Rock the Stephon Diggs baseball tee. It was a good day. Anthony, how did it feel to have the universe feel right finally?
It feels really good. It's also super, like, we either have just like horrible post games that we don't want to do, or just ones that are so fun and want to get at.
Welcome to being on the post.
Yeah, welcome to the post game. I mean, I think it's no coincidence. Again, Jaquan Johnson appears in a game on the defensive side of the ball, and the Bills are now 2-0 in those games. So coincidence? I think not.
Analytics doesn't lie.
No, the analytics do not lie. The metrics speak for themselves. No, but it was. I think this was the answer we all had ideally hoped for. Come out more business-like and just stomp a bad team into the ground, look pretty efficient while doing so. There were some, hiccups here and there on both sides of the ball, but a strong game all around. Almost like everything that I think we could have asked for, we saw in this game. We saw some change-ups on the offense. We saw better offensive line play. We saw the defense continue to dominate and make plays. So it feels pretty good. Plus, it snowed here yesterday. It's snowing a little again now. Like, winter's here. Just a fun time.
Beginning to look a lot like
Halloween.
Christmas.
That's it. Damn.
Eric tweeted it out through the Cover One account that all the stuff that people complained about this week sort of gone by the wayside here with this game, at least for this 1 week. There's not going to be a lot of those complaints that are going to be able to come up this week. And that's exactly sort of the tone, I think, that was set throughout the week at One Bills Drive with the press conferences. And a lot of people made a big thing about the no dancing at practice, all that stuff. It was businesslike. And, we talk about it all the time. It's not fun probably to be around McDermott when he's having those honest conversations in the film room. And you could see that played out here this week, that the team was on a mission. The defense was hitting a little harder. They were more physical on both in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And so it came through. So that Jaguars game might be the wake-up call that this team needed to go on a nice little run here.
Yeah, let's dive into the details here. It's really nice to have that reassuring win. And I think the reassuring started at the top with Josh Allen. 21 of 28, 75% completion percentage, 366 yards, 13.1 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, a phantom interception that probably should have been overturned, and I think the refs were just kind of lazy and ready to go home at that point. Just
don't want to do this anymore.
Just make the game end. He chipped in his least rushing of the season. We only saw 2 rushing attempts in the game. They were taking downfield shots.
Well, he had the one called back.
Correct.
Right?
That's
that 16-yard run.
Yeah, had a nice 16-yarder called back. But we saw a decisive Josh Allen. He should look good against a secondary here. It's fine to take a little grain of salt to realize that, hey, you should take advantage of this. Maneuvered the pocket really well. Did have a couple sacks. One was, we'll get to it when we talk about the offensive line when Tommy Doyle came in for a play. But overall, I thought maneuvered the pocket well because Quinn Williams, Robert Harris, and Shaq Lawson coming back in are legit defenders that you need to be aware of. Franklin Myers is tough. Being in a position where you can go through, still get the ball downfield, take those shots, and that, hey, it almost seemed unfair at one point that if you're going to leave Guidry out there in single coverage on Stephon Diggs, we're just going to keep wearing it out. And that, having Josh step back in a game like this should be the most reassuring of anything that's there. We'll talk about it in the running game and in the coordinator with the coaching talk, but that was my top point for the quarterback, was just feeling good to see him back and seeing where it was. What do you think, Ant?
Really strong response from Josh Allen. I think you hit it with a couple of points. The poise in the pocket, the poise throwing the ball. I mean, I think it also helps when he's not constantly under duress like he was the previous week against Jacksonville. But I like the game plan as well. I know we'll talk about when it comes to coaching, but, they put Josh under center more. They were giving different looks to the defense, and a lot of those looks were Josh under center, like you mentioned, and just going play action and setting Josh up with, I don't want to say simple things, but just getting back to the basics of more two-man reads and simpler progressions. Let's protect. Let's let Josh have some time, allow him to make his reads. And he did that today. He had a couple really nice throws. Even the one that he kind of undershot to Gabriel Davis. Davis makes a play on it. So things seem to go really well. He found Diggs a bunch. It was nice to see them get back to, this is something I think that I have written down for several points here. You can either win with talent or you can win with scheme. Sometimes you have my guy's better than your guy, boom, done. Or you can draw things up right and take advantage. And the Bills had several of those opportunities today, especially stemming from Josh Allen's play, where he just found guys that were better or he was better, combined with the scheme and the play calling, and just a really nice response from him, and a really quality game that we needed to see from him as we started to go forward, because there's been some questions around the inefficiency of him and the offense as a whole.
Yeah, I think, good get right game, right? And that's what the Jets are for. And people will I think some people will probably talk about, wow, it's the Jets, right? But last week it was the Jaguars, and that would have been a game to have the type of game he had today, and he didn't. So for him to come out, put up the type of numbers he did, and guys, Emmanuel Sanders had 2 toxic differential plays called back on whatever it was, two fouls. So
yeah, was, like a holding in illegal hands to the face or something like that.
Yeah.
And to your example, Pittsburgh had a chance to get right today against Detroit, and they just tied them in overtime.
Yeah, ugly, sloppy. And so this could have been a 400-yard plus day if you tack on those Emmanuel Sanders, or close to it, for Josh Allen, which I don't care who your opponent is, if you are throwing for that type of day, real good. So my thing that I took away the most, though, was the Allen to Diggs connection coming back. I got into it a little bit pregame. We talked about the targets with the WGR caller calling in and say they're not targeting Diggs enough. He is getting the targets. Yeah. I think the thing is how those targets were coming and where those targets were coming. It was
more aggressive downfield shots.
Yes, we were seeing a lot of like comeback stuff, short targets, not getting yak. And today we saw, like you said, aggressive down the field, hitting them in stride. That's what has been missing from this 2021 offense that we had last year. So that was good. And Josh getting a lot of people involved. It wasn't just Diggs. We saw Gabe Davis get some looks deep down the field. We saw him go after Emmanuel Sanders. So it was, quiet day from Beasley, but it just goes to show that Allen's not the kind of QB that just has to lean in on Diggs. He can get the ball going other places. So great to see. I don't know that I still am not sure that Josh has inserted himself into the MVP as a conversation. I don't know that he's there yet on the year, but I think that he reinserted that the argument's not off the table.
He's got to have some more gaudy numbers in order to be thrown into there. He's got to the touchdowns got to go up, because people are going to look at the raw stats. He needs that. But
just an FYI, the leader in the clubhouse and the MVP favorite right now, Tom Brady, just had a 2 interception horrible game, losing to Washington 29-19. So
although Cam might be the MVP after his performance Cam right now, he's starting a touchdown
every plays on the field apparently.
But that's a good point, Ant, because now let's switch over to the running back room, because the running backs took a handful of those touchdowns away from Josh in the red zone. And so we knew going into this game, we heard a lot about, they got 4 touchdowns in that game. And I think that's the story of the running backs here this year is, again, we don't need more running. I think a lot of people were going into this game worried about the conversations this week of, Sean McDermott talking about, we got to, be more balanced. We have to establish the run. We have to get that going, and thinking that they were going to come out to the Jets and overdo that and lean too hard into the run game. I saw a lot of that concern on Twitter, and really the Bills did the opposite. They really leaned into the pass game, but were effective and efficient in the run game, and got, to Greg's point that Greg was pounding the table for all week, getting Isaiah McKenzie involved in some of the jet sweep stuff. And it wasn't just, relying and running right into the middle of the defense. We saw him do it a couple times, wasn't successful. Zach Moss didn't have a great day doing that. But we saw a more effective run game here today in terms of when they were used, in the red zone, being effective at finishing drives. That's what we want from this run game. I still have a lot of problems in the run game, but I don't know that they're going to be answered this year with the quality of interior offensive line that the Bills have. I think that you have an issue with and so don't try to force something that is probably not going to be there. And so going forward, I want to see more Isaiah McKenzie involved in this offense, more of the jet sweep. I like, outside of the ball security issues with both Singletary and Matt Breida at the end of that game, that's got to get cleaned up. But I liked inserting Matt Breida into this offense and that type of speed and burst he provides, and the passing touchdown that he caught, that extra level of being a pass catcher. So pretty nice things from the running back group here this week. It's going to get way overshadowed, as it should, by what Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs did, but a pretty effective day for the most part, besides Zach Moss. And what do you think?
I liked it. If Breida sits, we riot. I had somebody make that graphic for me of the John Cena, RVD from One Night Stand years back. So this was a hashtag free Breida day.
You're gonna have to explain everything you just said to Greg. All those wrestling.
Any of the initials you just said, I have no clue what they mean.
Way over the top. No, it was my favorite one that I had that graphic, but then after I came up with off of give me liberty or give me death, it was give me Lee Breedy or give me death. That was my big one for today. It's nice to have him in the rotation. The touchdown reception that he had wasn't even about the speed. He runs that swing pass, realizes what the defense is doing, and is like, oh, screw it, I'm going to keep going to the end zone. He knows he has his man. He throws his hands up like, give me the ball right away, and Allen finds him. Just a smart, heady play. I know he had the fumble at the end, which sucked. But I hope that really doesn't put a dark spot on his day. Yeah, I completely agree with Heather. Let Breida run. It was nice to see what that speed element did. Even just turning a no-yard gain into a 3 or 4 yard gain, or turning a 4 or 5 yard gain into an 11, 12 yard gain. We saw what he was able to do. And ironically, on the Josh Allen blindside sack, Breida ran a beautiful angle route and was open over the middle. Josh just didn't see him. Breida came right out of the backfield and cut. It was nice. He had a good day. Singletary looked good. Moss broke some tackles. Moss probably looked the worst out of everyone, but still had a good day. We got some jet sweeps from Isaiah McKenzie. And I think it was just more effective, as we spoke about. But the fact that...
Quick question here. Elephant Man was asking about how bad was McKenzie's injury, and I think it
was out.
Aaron, or if
it was me. He came back out for that punt return.
He was back, the final, when you're the safety valve guy on the kneel down, he was out there on the field. They wouldn't have let him come out there if he was dinged up bad.
Yeah, that was a scary thing and really unfortunate if he would have gone down. But that little wrinkle, again, everything we've been wanting to talk about for the running game, we saw today. We haven't said we want 50-50 split. We want 60-40 split. We just said when you run the ball, be effective with it. They were good enough with the run to make the Jets account for it, so much so that when the Bills ran RPO, the safeties and the linebackers kept creeping in, and we saw Josh be able to take advantage of some behind those second-level defenders with some throws that we haven't seen from the RPO game in the last several weeks, because defenders have just been sitting and making him hand the ball off. So we started to see some respect for the run combined with the little added wrinkles, the play action passing game. It was nice how that all tied in together for the Bills. And again, we don't need to be a running team, but you cannot holistically be one-dimensional in order to win a Super Bowl. A defense has to be accountable for the run and the pass. The Bills showed they could do that today again against a not ideal team, but a team with a good front. Greg,
a good front, absolutely.
No, their defensive line,
especially in the red zone. Some of that, gaining some physicality in the red zone just gives you another tool, because they haven't been efficient in the red zone.
They've got a legit defensive line. They've got a stud in Quinn and Williams. C.J. Mosley is still very good. People don't recognize that. He had a nice tackle on Diggs, so it was nice to see them get back on track with that added element and have it be something, again, that teams have to account for. And I like the performance from all three running backs, but I'm going to continue to bang the drum for Matt Breida as much as possible. I know speed is not the complete answer, and just because someone's fast, but to Aaron's point, the offensive line from a talent perspective, especially on the interior, is not going to get better. Who we are up front is who we are at this point. So if you can add somebody like Matt Breida, who maybe he hits the hole a little faster and offensive linemen don't have to maintain their block as long, or he can turn a small crease in a 2-yard gain into a large gain in like 17 yards or a house call, that is a very big thing. And it's something neither Singletary nor Moss have had, because they don't have that long speed element in their game. And I think it's awesome that Breida got some burn today, and we included McKenzie back. Really strong day from the running backs and the running game as a whole.
I'll save some of my comments on the run game for the coaching section, because I thought this was the most creative usage we've seen in the run game. We saw end arounds, not only jet motion, but full end arounds to Emmanuel Sanders, the toss outside to Matt Breida. We have not seen a lot of that. I like the usage a lot, and I thought that was really a big piece of that, mixing it up. And I took a snapshot during the game in my game day thread when it was still kind of a game at the very end before they got into the 4-minute drill in the fourth quarter, and it was 15 rush attempts to 25 pass attempts. And I said that was the absolute perfect snapshot of more effective rushing with our version of balance. Balance is never going to be 50-50. Heck, the 60-40 that 25-15 represents is pretty much our version of 50-50. Like, that's as low as you're going to get.
That's where it's always going to be, yeah.
Yeah, so that's as balanced as you're going to get with this offense. I thought it was a perfect snapshot. It was more effective in the way that they do it, but without having to have it be so much more often that it took away from those downfield shots. And you saw those heavy set play actions were crushing them today to be able to go down and take it there. They did play action off heavy sixth linemen multiple times. I loved seeing that. They did heavy sets off tight end with Reggie Gilliam motion off to a second tight end, and again a huge heavy set, extra protection, but then they go play action and say, hey, you want to know what, we don't need 5 guys in this route. We have Stephon Diggs. He can beat your guy even if you have extra guys back there. And let's take that right into the receiving.
Well, we got to give Reggie, while we're on running backs, let's give Reggie Gilliam a little love. That 24-yard run by Emmanuel Sanders
down the field.
He was flying down the field, and he came back. He sold that play, came back, changed direction, and still got out ahead of Sanders. He had a little burst there.
A fullback keeping up in front of Emmanuel Sanders is no joke. That's no joke. So, Anthony, lead us off into the wide receivers and tight ends. I thought that, again, I was very excited. I wore the right shirt today. Stephon Diggs, huge breakout game, 8 for 162 and a touchdown. By far, Gabriel Davis, best game of the year, 3 for 105. Contributions across the board, maybe a quiet Cole Beasley day, but we knew that wasn't necessarily where you had to hammer. Like, we knew that the nickel was so soft with Miami that was going to be a play. I thought it was solid across the board. What did you think?
Yeah, really good game from the periphery weapons with the wide receivers and tight ends. Diggs, as you mentioned, the huge day, 8 catches, 162 yards. He had 13 targets. No one else had more than 3. And what I love about that is, I mentioned earlier, you can win with talent or you can win with scheme. The Jets, for whatever reason, decided they were going to play, from John, right? Who knew? The Jets decided they were going to play man coverage against the Bills for a significant amount of snaps. And once the Bills realized that, again, you can either win with talent or you can win with scheme. And the Bills said, okay, our guy is way better than whoever's going to cover him out there. They're going to play one-on-one. We're just going to keep going to that guy. And I loved that aspect of this team. They didn't try to keep getting too cute. They didn't try to do anything else. They didn't try to get creative. It was just like, well, just snap the ball and throw it to 14 because whoever's covering 14 can't cover 14. So just keep doing it. Josh got him the ball in the right scenarios. It was a good game from him overall from Stephon Diggs and a good game plan from the offense. And when everyone else got the opportunity, they shined. Gabriel Davis, like you mentioned, made multiple plays. Manny made plays with that end around and strong toxic differential plays, to Aaron's point. It would have been nice to see Dawson Knox come down with that touchy that went through his hands. But I'm sure if it was a catch that he could have only caught with like one hand, he probably would have caught it because he makes all the hard ones. And then I guess still drops the easy ones. But I'll give him a pass for the broken hand issue.
Come on, that wasn't an easy one. He had to come all the way back.
Yeah, but it was so soft. Like it was just a little like
I mean, I know people, he did not alligator arm that. I'm not saying that. It is also impossible not to have your peripheral make yourself brace that, oh God, I'm about to get hit. And I think the fact that it was a tough ball coming back and he saw the defender, it was just a really tough combination.
Yeah, I think it was going against the grain of him having to make that catch. Plus maybe Allen kind of, the way he flipped it, it's knuckling a little bit. That's a little difficult ball to catch.
It's not your normal, trajectory you're reading.
No. I'm not raking. And plus, he's coming back from a broken hand. Like, I'm not raking a guy over the coals for still playing with a broken hand. But it would just been nice to see him come down with that pass to add it to the day. We saw some nice timely throws to Beasley. I thought this was a good game plan overall that stressed the Jets. And then all of a sudden, when the Jets are like, well, we're going to do this coverage, the Bills' ability again to flip and just be like, screw it, we're just doing this. We're going to spam the hell out of this over and over and over and over again was a tremendous thing to see. And we got to, see Stephon Diggs have an amazing game. And to Aaron's point, kind of quiet the notion of, well, he's not seeing enough targets, and he's not seeing what he saw last year, even though he kind of was. But it's nice to have the raw stats back that up for this one.
Yeah, my favorite part, to your point, Ant, was the confidence the Bills had in the Allen Diggs connection to say, hey, if you're going to play man, we're going to attack it. And I think it was right before the half with that double dip, activating the double dip where they went at Diggs. It was ruled an incompletion, which it was. It was a bit, and then they went right back to it again.
They were just like, screw it. We're just going to do it again.
Everyone in the stadium saw it coming.
You're not going to move the safety back out there?
Yeah.
All right.
You're going to do the same thing again. Okay. That type of confidence, that's something we haven't seen in Buffalo in forever, to have that type of confidence to go right back at a guy at the same time. So to have 2 stars on the same page like that, if a team's going to test you like that, I think you have to do exactly what the Bills did. And so that was great. What I really liked about, maybe this is probably better for the coaching section, but early in this game, they were doing some more of the short passing and more of an extension of the run game. And I think then you saw later in the game that allowed Josh Allen to go deeper down the field and push the ball down the field. And that's really what I want to see from this offense, is have that be an extension of the run game. And then when teams come up to work on, especially if they're going to play man, if they're going to press on that, we'll go deep all day.
Which is the whole reason why we want the run game to succeed, because we want to be like, no, bring more guys to the box so we can continue to eat in the passing game. So correct. I love that point.
And it shows the versatility of this wide receiver room. Like, everyone's, frustrated that, without McKenzie, they didn't have the speed to burn the top off of defense. Stuff Diggs has that speed to burn the top off defenses, but you have to get defenses to come up, right? You have to establish that to force defenses to come up. Then he can take the top off of you. All these guys have this. Even Gabe Davis has the speed to beat the defense. But if people are going to play back into these 2 cover 2 shells, it's hard to push the ball down the field. So you have to give teams a reason to come play you up at the line of scrimmage, which is that short passing game. So I like the versatility of this wide receiver room, and it was on display today.
So switching over into the offensive line, I think that there's, it was
better,
as good as you can. Yeah, that's the right terminology. It was as good as you can expect. We don't have the full unit back. You're moving guys all around again. Ike Bottker is, a better pass blocker than run blocker. You had Williams kicking back into guard. I thought it looked like, and again, you have to wait till the film comes out, I thought it was a pretty solid game from Spencer Brown. We obviously saw, I think you got, wrongfully given a hard time over your comments. I thought that exact play that Deion Dawkins got called for a hold for
on the Josh Allen run
is normally a highlight reel play for Quentin Nelson, or
honestly, Wyatt Teller. Eric just did a Wyatt Teller highlight reel, and there was like 3 plays where he straight up tackled
Trent Williams
dudes.
does that all the time.
Yes.
And people celebrate it when Trent Williams monster,
pancakes a guy.
Yeah, pancakes a guy. So don't get me wrong. Are some of those plays ticky-tack technically a hold? Sure. But a backside pancake to a naked bootleg off the right, the referee going to call it? Come on, man.
What's wild, I don't care that it got
to do with the play.
Yeah, it was a bad call, and that's okay. Bad calls happen. We know NFL officiating stinks. My problem was how people were trying to kill Deion Dawkins on that. Like, he did something totally wrong. Like, oh, you can't tackle a guy. Like, come on. It happens all the time in the NFL. It had nothing to do with the play. It was a cheap call. Just leave it at that. I'm not mad at Deion about it.
So on top of that, I think it's okay to, one, say Deion Dawkins has not been playing at the franchise left tackle level we saw last year, and 2, not say that Deion Dawkins is a bum. People need to find some nuance in their life to be able to say that, hey, Deion Dawkins is still a good left tackle. He's still a fine upper above average starter, and he hasn't been as consistent and isn't having as good of a season. He's not a problem. He's not a guy we need to look to replace. He is a huge part of the future of this organization and signed to a very good extension that's going to be a good value as we move forward. And I'd love to see him play more consistently, and I'd love to see him not be able to miss some blocks here or there. However, if you want a picture of what life is like after Deion Dawkins, Tommy Doyle came in for 1 snap today, and he got his butt whooped around the edge and almost got killed.
They forced a punt when they were rolling.
Yeah. So, if you want a picture of what life is like after Deion Dawkins, go look at some of these other teams, the Bengals and the Lions, that have been searching for offensive line help forever. It can get a lot worse, so just be conscious of how you do that. Mitch Morse, again, calling out all the plays all day, seeing him out in space is really where his value is. You see him out there pulling in front of Breida on that toss play. It's so fantastic having it there. And I'm not going to hammer on it, but spin here with the question. If we got Ryan Bates and we got all these moving parts and you lose Deion Dawkins and you still don't bring him in, what is the value of playing 5 positions if you can't actually play any of them in a game? He was the 6th lineman that came in on the tackle eligible play, so he did get some snaps.
He looked
today.
good in those.
So it's weird. The usage there is weird. I don't really know. I thought the offensive line took a step forward today, but wasn't anything crazy. Anthony, I know this is the toughest one to be able to see during the broadcast, and we need the film for, but what were some high-level thoughts you had?
I spend so much time during this game rewinding my TV to watch like anything that happened on a run or even pass pro. Like I wanted to see what the line was doing. I kept like rewinding. It took me so long to get through. I'm sure by the time like everybody was at like halftime, I was still like midway through the second quarter because I kept rewinding so much because the line has been just so important to me. I mentioned, I think on Twitter last week or something like that, like if you would have told me before the season started that like Spencer Brown was like the key to this Bills offense or a key, I would have been completely shocked. It's wild what his athleticism and his tenacity do for this offensive line in the zone and on the toss plays. He had several highlight reel blocks today where you just see all the raw measurables on display for what he can do. His ability to get out in space, to get to the second level, to maintain leverage and just maul guys is tremendous. And the attitude that he has goes along with it. I love how you mentioned Mitch Morse. There were several plays today where they ran a couple of full blocks with Bodker crashing down onto Williams over Morse and then Morse getting out in space, which is a massive strength of his. It's a shame. The Bills are a zone running team at this point based on the deficiencies they have up front, but it would be awesome if they could be a gap running team or have more gap runs because Mitch Morse is one of the best pulling centers and one of the most athletic centers in football, and he doesn't get to showcase that enough given what we have on this offensive line, but they allowed him to get into some space today, make some plays. I thought Bodker was meh again, but not bad. Darrell Williams didn't do anything that stood out as terrible. Again, to your point, once the all-22 drops, this is the first thing I'm going to again because I really want to see the offensive line. But again, we don't need them. We don't need the offensive line to be the best offensive line in football. We just need them to not be a vulnerability. That's all that it is. We don't need them to all be all pros and make the Pro Bowl. Everybody just play at a B level. That's it. Just play like the 12th best offensive line. Don't have games where you play like the fifth best, and then the next game you play like you're the 28th. Just play as the 12th all the time. That's it. Just do
it's like what I want as a punter.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Just don't do the Matt Hawk where you're like, oh my God, what a punt, and then the next one you're like, oh my God, what a punt. Like,
because it's okay to acknowledge Josh Allen can save you from plenty of plays. You don't want to get him into a spot like we saw in Jacksonville where he's so worried about saving you that he has to bail early and make bad decisions. You need to give him a chance to let him save you here or there. Don't force him to save you every snap.
Allow him to capitalize on that athleticism exactly from time to time rather than having it be part of the play. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
No, you're good. I do think when we look at Josh Allen saves this offensive line from looking bad on a weekly basis. Even on that Breida touchdown, his manipulation and athleticism in the pocket,
stepped right
play.
up, gave the shoulder, boom,
so
beautiful.
They owe him. Usually the quarterback buys everybody at Christmas a big present. Those guys need to pull together and get Josh Allen something for making them look a little bit better.
The other way around. The other way around. Right. Normally he's buying the gifts.
Yeah. A couple points to some of the stuff you guys said. Dawkins, maybe he's not playing at the level that we want him to. I think, I'm not trying to build in excuses here, but I think the COVID stuff is real. I think when we hear about the story of physically what went into it, I think that's real right before the season.
Yeah, and being hospitalized for it is different than just having it.
Just having it, yes, correct. And he talked about the weight loss and the struggle to get back.
Didn't he also say like he felt like he was going to like die or something really dramatic?
He said that he had to ask himself some questions about, am I going to pull through this that he had never asked himself before.
Yes, and we're really not that far removed. Like if you had a medical procedure or something devastating happened to you medically, we're not far away from that, right? So we have to have some perspective there. It's not a built-in excuse. What I do think is a built-in excuse is the quality of linemen next to you. right? We know Richie Incognito was a big part of his success early on in his career, and he talked about playing next to Richie Incognito. I don't think there's a drop-off between John Feliciano and Ike Bottker, and that's not saying anything good about either one of those guys, right? Like, I do think I'm very serious. I don't like either one of them. I think they're below.
One's a better run blocker, one's a better pass blocker.
Sure.
About it.
Yeah, and I think ultimately they're both below average NFL starters, and they are the weak links, and it's okay to have a weak link. Yeah, overdue route. Enjoyed seeing it. Absolutely.
She should be on the show.
The Tompsett family makes up like a good 3% of our viewership on the show, and
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Oh, I absolutely love it. And then to the point about Spencer Brown, I couldn't have been more wrong about him this offseason. Talking about Greg, you and I were sitting here talking about like, this guy's not going to play for 2 years, right? Like he's super ready, and that those traits are showing up right away. And to your point about him being such a big piece, it's not even so much all those things that he does is a great piece, but it's allowing people to play in position, right? They're like allowing Darrell Williams to play at guard, which again, I was wrong about that. Darrell Williams was actually played pretty nice at guard, to your point of saying, hey, he didn't do anything great, but it didn't look bad. Like that's what we want out of offensive lineman. I don't want to get on here and talk about how bad an offensive lineman looks. So again, happy with the progress forward. I still think it's the weak link. It's still my biggest worry about this team going forward. When you do play good teams, Patriots look really good. They're getting to the passer. Tampa Bay, even though they lost today, that's going to be a struggle with this offensive line. If they can figure out how to scheme around it, that's all right. But if they can keep this group healthy and just have either Bottker or Feliciano be that weak link, I do think they can get by. Just keep Cody Ford off the field. That's all I ask.
So pivoting over here to our West Herr drive of the game, if you're looking
Pick
for a
one.
vehicle,
Anyone.
Pick our friends over at West Herr, the largest automotive group in New York State. 21 different dealerships all over the place. They have all of your automotive needs taken care of. And today, yeah, Aaron, you made a great call on Twitter earlier that last week we struggled to pick any, and today there's a plethora of choices to be able to make. Would you say that I have a plethora? Coming out of the second half for the double dip is going to be my choice. It was my call in the moment on Twitter that was the most creative run design drive that I've seen in a long time from Buffalo. We come out of the half, 5 plays, 75 yards. First one is a nice deep strike to Stephon Diggs. Then, boom, 7-yard run to Singletary, 13-yard run to Singletary, 24-yard run to Emmanuel Sanders, 8-yard jet sweep give to Isaiah McKenzie. It was the exact kind of back and forth motion that you want to see, keeping them off balance, ready for the pass. You hit him with the run. That was my drive of the game. Anthony, what was yours?
That was going to be mine, but I figured one of you guys would say it, so I wanted to go another. I wanted to drill down real quick on that point from Greg. The fact that we had a 5-play, 75-yard touchdown drive in 2 minutes and 59 seconds, and 4 of those 5 plays were runs, and 2 of them were creative runs. That's like how it needs to be for the Buffalo Bills. That was beautiful. It was related to that, but I'm going to go with the touchdown drive right before the end of the first half that started that double dip. It was 10-3. We weren't really pulling away like we should have been. If that game goes in 10-3 or even 13-3, if you're the Jets, you're feeling like, well, maybe we kind of won that first half, even though we're down. Let's see what happens coming.
We're within reach.
Correct. Where they're within striking distance. Let's see what we can do. The Bills go 5 plays, 75 yards for the touchdown in a minute. That's the one where we see Allen go deep to Diggs on the double move again. I think that one was. I have to replay it in my head. It might have been. I think it was man, but the corner gave like a drop. Well, it's not even important. But Diggs beats his man really bad on a double move, catches and runs for 57 yards, and we just see the Bills' quick strike offense. 5 plays, 75 yards a minute. Nice way for them to go into the half up 17-3, combined with the one coming out of the second half. I'd put that together as one giant drive of the game, because you go from being it's 10-3 and then and
everyone's concerned. Twitter
Correct.
Was starting to
Very
get concerned
legit.
that they were not scoring.
Very legit. And so it's 10-3. There is some concern. The Jets are feeling kind of decent. And then in 10 plays, you're all of a sudden up 24-3 versus 10-3. So those two things coupled together, tremendous from me.
That was probably, honestly, my favorite part of the day is double dip. I love double dips, and we'll get into that in the coaching section. But I think both you guys are right. And the only third one I would throw up to the podium here for consideration would be the first drive of the game, right? They came out. It was a perfect start to any football game. Your defense goes 3 and out, makes them punt, and then you go 5 plays, 58 yards in under 2 minutes. And they just oppose their will on the Jets and went
Matt
right down
Breida,
the
baby.
field and scored. Yeah, and that was the Matt Breida touchdown. So I do think the one out of the half is probably should be the drive of the game for this one. But again, you had so many nice drives in this game. And I really liked starting out like that, especially with all the questions coming into this game and them starting slow against Jacksonville a week ago and settling for field goals early on. I think it relieved a lot of the anxiety for Bills fans. You can't settle for field goals against bad teams. I think that was really pounded in this week, and they came out and executed on the first drive and really established themselves as the dominant team for the day. So I think it at least should be in consideration with the one you brought up, Ant.
Yeah. And Aaron, why don't you lead us into some defensive line talk?
Yeah, so the defensive line, this one's going to be a weird one that I want to really look back on this week. I know, Ant, you're going to focus on the offensive line when the All-22 comes out. I'm going to focus on the defensive line because they did a good job. We saw a number of pressures on Mike White that forced some of those bad plays that we saw in some of those interceptions, but we didn't see necessarily the sacks or anything like that. We didn't see a lot of crazy plays right from this day. It was just consistent, steady pressure. But there was a number of times where he was able to find more time than I thought that he should have against this Bills defensive line. So I want to see sort of what happened. But I think maybe my favorite thing was Ed Oliver finally had the play that everybody's been begging for him to have, and that type of super disruptive, game-changing play, which I get why they overturned it, but it's a fumble. Every day of the week, that's a fumble. His arm, they gave that one to him, I think, a little bit.
If it was going forward, it was literally for a microsecond.
I think he caught a little momentum after the hit, and they considered that going forward. Great play by Ed to break that up. We saw some nice run stuff from Greg Rousseau. I think his ascension stalled a little bit here at the start of the season, and that's okay. But really, what I want to see from him is those runs. I want to see him come in.
I'll say his pass rushing is plateaued, but his run integrity has continued to progress, which is
usually the harder thing for some of these young defensive linemen. Like, it's okay, you can come in and win on pass rush downs and stuff like that, but really establishing yourself as a good run defender is hard. And I think a lot of the times too, that dip in his pass rushing ability, I think some fans think he's going to come out with all these big moves and all that stuff. A lot of what they're asking him to do is keep contained, right? Like, which is what the Bills didn't have a year ago. And so it doesn't always show up. And we've had this argument a number of years here where some of the Bills, Shaq Lawson was a big keep contained guy. And so he wasn't getting the big sack numbers, and people would say, well, the sacks aren't there. And it's like, well, but he's doing his job, right? And I think Greg Rousseau's doing his job. Jerry, still very explosive. Again, he's not getting this. He's not going to get the sack numbers, but I think his pressures will be up there again this week. Obata had a really nice game. I thought he flashed a number of times in this game. So, I was really concerned seeing Star Lotulelei out, especially with Tremaine Edmonds also out in this game. I thought that opened up a real weakness in the middle of the field. And there was a few times where the Jets started establishing the run, but it never really got out of control for the Bills. And they were always able to pull it back in and get business done. And so I do think a lot of the interceptions we saw, a lot of people are going to talk about the defensive backs, and they did a great job, but I think a lot of them were due to pressure on Mike White. And so I'm interested to see the pressure stats. I'm interested to watch it back because I don't know that it always felt like the line was playing great, but I think they influenced this game a lot more than we think.
Oh, 1,000%. And I was super excited to talk about defensive line coming into this post game because of how they played. And, now I'm going to give a quick shameless little plug. Aaron, you mentioned multiple times looking at the film and looking at the All-22. One of the things that we've done here on Cover One, you've seen the film room episodes, whether it's been the live ones on YouTube or the recorded ones that Eric has put up. When we do the live ones, Eric and I both do them in the Cover One film room. Going forward, starting this upcoming Tuesday, the film room will be a live show and also a podcast episode as well here on the Cover One Network. So starting this Tuesday at 7 p.m. Oh, thanks. I'm just going to wing it. I'm not going to watch any of the film and just make up stuff as Eric's like.
Some people do that. Some people do that with success.
I've seen videos where people just show up and wing it. I've seen it.
Eric's going to be like, what'd you think on this one? Be like, well, Dan Marino looks great. He's got a rocket arm. Love it. So yeah, we're tremendously excited to, we've done the live show with it. But now having it as an actual podcast and part of the network is something that's really awesome and that we're tremendously excited about. So, and right on time, there goes my alarm to remind me to plug it. That's wild. That's unreal. So yeah, awesome maybe one of the things we'll be talking about is
your workhorse title also is increasing. It's giving more credibility to your workhorse title.
I like it. Anything I can do to add to it. I should get a sign, like how you write the sign. I should just write workhorse and put it behind me.
Right.
Sweet. But maybe we'll talk about the defensive line in this upcoming episode. I would love to. Aaron, you hit so many great points. I thought Rousseau looked good in his run fits. F.A. Obata looked so strong, being another interior pass rushing option. He led to whether it was he hit White's hand directly or just getting in his face enough. That's what led to the Taron Johnson interception, the Jordan Poyer interception. They played a great game up front with Klein spiking inside, and Addison looped all the way around and came free on Mike White and forces that bad throw. The defensive line looked really strong again in a multitude of ways. I like you, Aaron, was nervous when I saw the Star news in addition to the Justin Zimmer news, coupled with Tremaine Edmonds being out. And then you saw the inactives before the game because it was like, oh, well, Brandon Bryant's been called up, and then it's like he's going to be inactive. It's like, okay, we're going with the defensive end rotation. That means they're going to have to kick inside.
3D tackles.
Correct. Yeah. What are we going to get? How are they going to be able to hold up?
Versatility matters, man.
Versatility 1,000% matters with this defensive line. The Bills ideally just want to rush 4, and that means you have to have guys who can wear multiple hats, and you have to be able to continue to rotate bodies in and out. The Bills did that today. I am interested to see a little more what happened on those runs that the Jets broke off a little bit. Aaron, you mentioned it. They weren't able to like bust it open big, but I thought there were a significant amount of runs where they got the better of us. And so I'm interested to see from that perspective, what was the cause there? That would be my only gripe or negative comment there. But Ed Oliver was a game record today. Obata looked strong. I thought AJ Epinesa looked really great. I tweeted out a play of the Bills down on the goal line. It was right before Michael Carter scored that touchdown on the run. Epinesa comes down off the edge and he's going to the QB, but he notices that the fullback is going to leak out. So he mugs the fullback a little bit and slows him down and then gets to Mike White and forces the incompletion. Like, that's a nice heady play. Yeah. Yep. 1,000%. Like, we're seeing a lot of pieces click. The Bills are not going to have a stud. Well, Ed Oliver's close to that area, but they don't have like a solid all-pro stud up front. But what they have is a whole bunch of B+ and A- guys that they rotate in and out and in and out. And today was a tremendous example of that and how effective it can be, especially when you're just looking at the raw stats and you're like, well, they didn't do anything. And then you watch the game and you're like, oh no, they did a lot of things.
I think Dwayne has a great point here. We should just be quiet until more people hit the like button.
A silent strike.
I'd be fine with that.
A silent strike. You couldn't stay silent if we tried. Come on.
This cough is the closest thing.
I was going to say, Greg would like it. He'd be like, that's fine. Mute.
So going through, looking at the linebacker play, my biggest concern today was Michael Carter out of the backfield, isolated on AJ Klein. AJ Klein showed himself really well today. You saw him flash multiple times. His instincts of when to fire the gun and come downhill on some of those run fits were fantastic. He hit a couple screens for big losses in the backfield. Really solid game. 2 tackles for losses, 7 tackles overall. And I don't have any flashing moment in my mind of, oh my gosh, he got caught in coverage. I don't have a single one. I'm sure he did at some point in some of those catches that were dumped off. But just nothing glaring. Nothing that was, oh my gosh, what a huge play that was given up because of AJ Klein. So that's about all you can ask. We talked on Wednesday night, Aaron, that people underestimate the pterodactyl wingspan of Tremaine Edmonds and what that provides. I thought Matt Milano had a great game today to help compensate there, but kudos to AJ Klein. From what I can tell, I think he played 100% of snaps. I don't recall him coming off the field at all, so I think he literally stepped in for every single snap of Tremaine Edmonds, and I think he played well. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't great. He's not a replacement for Tremaine Edmonds, but he is a luxury as an extra guy that a lot of teams don't have, to have a veteran like that to be able to come in and acquit himself as well as he did. Aaron, what did you think about the linebacker play today?
Real quick, I'm watching Red Zone. Josh Allen's the passing leader for the NFL so far today. So congratulations, Josh. Terrible performance. Regression. Such a bad regression. No, I agree with everything you said. I think the point that I would like to make about this linebacker room is, I think you hit the perfect word. What a luxury it is to have an AJ Klein. And, crazy how far we've come in a year with AJ Klein, because there was when they brought in Darren Lee, everyone's like, we got to get Darren Lee on the field and get Klein out of here. And I do think the Bills have a luxury that a lot of teams don't. And having a guy that could come in and, spell you for a few games if you needed it. And I do think while he's not a good outside linebacker in terms of some of that athleticism that he lacks, he can play both positions and come in and be a guy that if Milano gets hurt, which we know that he's had a history with injuries, or obviously now Tremaine popping up with this hamstring, that's something. Hamstrings, man, we don't know. Those soft tissues could go a week or two. You never know. I don't want to rush him him back because you need Tremaine to do the ultimate goal of what you want to do. But I feel pretty confident that you can have Klein out there. And, again, you lose some of the athleticism, but he's not going to be the reason that your team loses because he's out there, which it really is. You hit it, a luxury to have.
Yeah, he had a really good game today. There were, I don't want to nitpick, but he had a couple plays, whether in man or zone, where he got beat or made the wrong read. He came up on an under route and gave up the space behind him on a big throw from Mike White, and just little things that showed the limitations that he does have in space. But coming forward, his instincts, his anticipation, his ability to shoot the gap and make plays in the backfield, he really showed that again today. And it's something I mentioned after the Kansas City game, and I've noticed it since then because he hasn't played a lot. He adds what Stephon Diggs did to the Bills offense, where just added like bite to it and tenacity, because Stephon Diggs is the quote unquote dog. AJ Klein is like that on defense. He just when he's in there, I feel like every hit the defense makes is just like a pop or a violent hit. He adds grit and tenacity and like violence to this defense. He adds bite. And I think that is an awesome thing for anybody, but especially in today's NFL, that it's more spread offense and it's more passing and it's more, pomp and circumstance, that it is like, meat and potatoes and like grit. And Klein just goes in there and changes the mentality of the defense when he's in there with the hits. And even when he had one where he kind of like overshot on Carter a little bit, but wrapped him. Just the way like he grabbed him around his shoulder pads and he yanked him down to the ground. Like every play just has like oomph behind it. And it's really good to see, especially like Aaron, like you mentioned, with a soft tissue injury to Tremaine Edmonds. Next week, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Jonathan Taylor just had another game with 100 yards and a touchdown, which I think he's only like the fourth play. There's some stat before, like the only players to have 100 yards and a touchdown in like 6 or 7 straight games was like him, LaDainian Tomlinson, and 2 other people. So he's rolling. The Colts offensive line is good. They want to run the ball. I like the idea of, even if Tremaine is healthy and able to play, to know that Klein is still that serviceable piece that we can put in a game where there's going to be some physicality and we need to stop the run. He's just able to shoot gaps, make plays in the backfield, show that veteran experience. And, his athleticism is limited, and we will see that from time to time, but he added nastiness to this defense, and it was awesome to see today.
Yeah, and talking about, some of the nastiness to this defense, I do think, you made a great point that when Klein's in there, it's a different thing. But really, this defense is led by the defensive backs, right? Like, especially at the safety position. I think Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde both have an all-pro season.
Are they good?
Right now? Yeah, they are absolutely making a case for an all-pro seasons. I think Taron Johnson is also making a case for an all-pro season at a slot. And Levi is playing steady as hell. He comes up with a great play and a pick today. And
literally every starting DB had a turnover.
Everyone had a turnover.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Which again, some of it was by the defensive line, but I mean, these guys played flawless. There's a lot you can say about the opponent in the Jets and Mike White, coming back down to earth for real quick here this week. But this Jets skill player positions they really are no joke. Like Moore, Davis, like these guys are legitimate wide receivers in the NFL that can beat really any cornerbacks in the league. And so I didn't have concern, but I thought, that they would work their way up and down the field a little bit more and wouldn't have so much turnovers as we had. But guys were not getting open. Even some of the catches that they were making, there was good coverage on. So a really nice day by this group. There's not a lot to say. It's just a consistent, really good group. Everybody got in on the turnovers. At the end of the Bills are already going into it. We're in the lead in toxic differential for the league. We're in the lead in turnover differential. It's only going to grow here from this week. And that's led by this secondary. And Greg, I texted Greg during the show and tweeted it out. Greg's got to come up with some numbers for me for a multi-year extension for my guy, Levi Wallace. And I might even have to start making some apology forms for people that have been trashing on Levi Wallace for the last few years. Because, dude, I've been a defender, right, of Levi, and obviously Taron I stand for. But Levi's even exceeded my expectations this year. I think he's putting together a sneaky, really good season. He's not going to be, recognized for it on any level, but as a cornerback too, I used to say he was on par with his peers. I think this season, at least halfway through the season, it could change. He's playing at probably some of the best level of any cornerback too. I think they have a real good top cornerback tandem right now with Levi and Trey.
He's putting himself in position where obviously the $1.75 million is not going to be on the table this year. I don't know that he has the track record to ask for Taron Johnson's deal.
No.
But I think that I think his agents asked for it the first day, and then they might settle on 2 years, 12 million, maybe 6 million a year. I think he's got himself up into that range, and
still draft a guy, but give him that multi-year.
Bring in more. We want versatility. I want a guy. I think that Taron Johnson going out and you rightfully defended Siran Neal. He was not a disaster last week, but it showed that if we're debating,
there's a drop off.
Cam Lewis or Siran Neal, we don't have a great backup plan in a game that matters. If we're playing the Rams or the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, I don't want a backup plan coming in against their 3 receiver sets. I don't want that kind of thing. So, being in that kind of position is there. I thought, today is everything you could ask for from this Bills defensive backfield, and that having literally every single guy create a turnover, 4 interceptions for obviously Trey, Levi, Taron, and Jordan Poyer, and then his own strip and recovery for Micah Hyde. Having that across the board, you can't pick a better example. They all contribute, they all talk, they all communicate. They're able to get everything going. What Levi Wallace has done is before, Aaron, you had to stand for him and had to defend him because people didn't see the things that he did well, and they always overemphasized
and the responsibilities of that position, right?
Where he would give up a catch and make a tackle, but he was still doing his job. Now what he's giving you is ammo because he's making plays. He's jumping routes, he's reading quarterbacks, he's making plays on the ball. He's being aggressive. That combination is not something we've consistently seen. And now we've seen that in, 4 or 5 games this year?
And it's answering the call from the coaches, right? Like both McDermott and Leslie Frazier publicly put him on blast like, hey, he's a good player, he's consistent, but he needs to make teams not target him. And he's answered that call.
Anthony, what have you thought about this fantastic defensive backfield and their ability to disguise coverages?
That aspect is so overrated.
Plug your show while you're here.
I agree. Disguise coverage is incredibly overrated.
No, the show is overrated. The concept in actual football is overrated and terrible. No, that was a huge, all jokes aside, like I was thinking of saying that as you were speaking.
Did you guys see my petty tweet? I wrote a thank you note to there's multiple. I wrote a thank you note to Jets fans saying, hey, you're welcome for exposing Mike White and letting that nonsense work its way
killed that
through,
for you,
and now you can get back to actually developing Zach Wilson, the number 2 overall pick. You're welcome for exposing the fact that was never a
showing he got drafted exactly where he was supposed to be.
He got drafted exactly where he was supposed to be.
We should have played the long con and let him get like 2 or 3 touchdowns and still won just to keep that that in the background there. No, but the Bills, they not to dunk on him at all, but they exposed him today. They did a tremendous job of disguising coverage, all jokes aside.
He could not read them. He could not read where they were going to be.
And a huge key to that is, again, those safety looks. That's the easiest pre-snap read in the world for a QB to see what's going on with the safeties. It's the reason, when I had Seth Galina on from PFF last week, one of the things we've talked about with why teams are showing more pre-snap too high shell is because it allows you to stay more versatile and multiple on the defensive side of the ball and play more games with offenses, and love it. Well done. That's an inside joke from the Cover One TM. Kyle's the man for that. Well done, Kyle. Well done, Kyle. Hyde and Poyer are a huge key to the Bills disguising coverage on the back end, and they showed 2 high looks and ran 2 high. They showed 2 high and ran single high. Vice versa. They were doing man. They were doing zone. They were dropping out. They also got creative from a pressure standpoint as well up front. There was a time when they had the double A gap blitz look showing, and then they only brought 3, and they dropped like Vernon Butler and I think Basham or Mario Addison out into coverage. They did that multiple times. They were just throwing like the proverbial kitchen sink at Mike White and being like, here's all these looks, have fun trying to decipher them. And the secondary led that in the backfield and on the back end. Another solid game. It's funny watching Greg trying to struggle and not cough/die and laugh. Tre'Davious White did his thing. Hyde and Poyer are both playing at all pros. I think I've never cared too much, but I think right now it's so ridiculous. How many times do we see those stupid tweets that come out of like, which safety tandem is the best in the league? And the Bills aren't even on that graphic from a multiple amount of like professional publications. They just don't get that shine. Levi, to Aaron's credit, played well again today. This has been the key to this Bills defense is the back end. They're the reason this defense kind of turned around. And when you couple it with the strong performance we're seeing from the defensive line, it's really a tremendous thing. And it helps you mitigate the loss of someone like Tremaine Edmonds when you've got studs on the back end playing like studs on the back end and playing mind games with the quarterback. So that way a loss isn't really felt.
Well, being able to dive into
I was gonna say I saw you too, and I was like, I'll do
it. Is the spotlight player of the game, and the reason I didn't chime in on the defensive line discussion is because I wanted to wait for this moment. And my Uncle Jumbo's, I enjoyed it thoroughly tonight. If anyone hasn't had the bombsicle, this is delightful.
It's the bomb.
It really is. It's fantastic, and I'm excited to be able to see their new Niagara Frontier bourbon whiskey.
I'm sure you are.
I am going to enjoy it thoroughly. I can't lie about how excited I am about being able to taste their new whiskey. My Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight. This is like the third time I've said this in the season. There is no player who belies how silly NFL box scores are more than Ed Oliver. If you open up the box score says Ed Oliver had 1 tackle. That's terrible. It. No other statistics, no other things that occurred. He had 1 tackle. Ed Oliver wrecked this game. He was in the backfield constantly. He is the player that we hoped he was going to be. And don't get me wrong, do I want him also to get credit for some of the other things and to finish some of the other plays and also to get sacks and for that not to get overturned and to be able to be there? Spin point, he did get credited with 3 quarterback hits, it was correct. And I actually think the overturned play, instead of giving him the strip sack fumble, they credited it as a pass defended.
Oh, that's funny. I'll take that.
Gave him a pass defense.
Pass breakup. Okay.
But, Stephon Diggs was amazing today. Josh Allen was amazing today. I just wanted to give a shout out. Ed Oliver is becoming that game wrecker we hoped he could be. I'm really excited to get Starr back. I'm really excited to be able to give him those guys running there. But if he continues down this path, I had the chance to go on our friend Joe Marino's show. He asked me to do some prep on the question of Ed Oliver's 5th-year option. I absolutely have zero question. There is no debate.
It's made for guys like Ed Oliver, too.
It is the perfect example of why you simply exercise the option and keep watching him play for Tremaine 2 more years. Yeah. Just like Tremaine Edmonds. You watch him in the 4th year and the 5th year. We have Tremaine Edmonds under contract next year. We still don't have to worry about it. You have plenty of time. They're going to do the same thing next spring. They're going to exercise the option. You're going to get 2 more years of Ed Oliver, and you just keep watching him play. And if he keeps flourishing and he becomes more expensive, that's great. That's a great problem to have. We'll deal with it as it happens, and we'll pay him his gobs of money when that time
or we'll
comes.
Get a sweet compact.
Yeah, or we'll figure out the alternative when we go the other direction. Yeah. But I think there are lots of options today. The entire secondary, lots in the passing game. But my Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight goes to Ed Oliver. Aaron, how about you?
We threw a curveball because you wore the Stephon Diggs shirt and you highlighted that. So I thought you were for sure going with Diggs. So I'm going to go with Diggs. Career high, or not career high, but Bills high for him in yards, I believe, today. Coming out party here for the 2020 season, which, again, I went into it with some people pregame that he is still actually had been productive this year and he's getting targets like he did last year. But I think Bills fans needed this game for Stephon Diggs of having a really dominant game like he had in 2020. And I think just showing that on tape gives Bills fans that confidence. And so I'm super happy for Diggs and Allen to get back on that same page and have a totally dominant performance where they targeted him like a true number 1 wide receiver all day long. And I want to see more of it. So Diggs is getting my game ball today.
Ooh, I have all those guys up there. I thought Ed, tremendous game wrecker. The get off, penetration, and strength of point of attack was awesome. Diggs speaks for himself. I'm going to circle back to one who I didn't talk about when I went over the linebackers. Matt Milano put a sneaky good game together again in a variety of ways, making plays in the backfield, strong in pass in terms of man and zone again. I think his ability to be the player that he is and do what he does allows that Tremaine Edmonds absence to be less felt. It mitigates that loss. He had a lot of good plays today. And I again, ones that won't show up on the box score as much, but he's starting to I thought when he was coming back from the hamstring injury those first couple games, he didn't look like the Matt Milano that he was before that injury. I think he's starting to round back into form to the guy who, in my opinion, I thought he was hands down the best Bills defensive player in the first quarter of the season. And second to him and close would have been Taron Johnson, in my opinion. Milano had a great game today. Again, plays knifing in the backfield, making looks difficult for Mike White. Again, his relationship, this is a part of a larger discussion, but his relationship with Taron Johnson and the safeties, that whole synergistic and symbiotic relationship allows all of them to function on a higher level. I think it is no coincidence that all due, credit to what Taron Johnson has done, but it's no coincidence that Taron Johnson is having such a strong game or having a strong year because he's got a healthy Matt Milano there. And several of the things that Hyde and Poyer are able to do in terms of disguising coverage and spinning down from 2 high looks to single high and all of these things, they're able to do a lot of that because of the presence and ability of someone like Matt Milano, in addition to the general piece of nickel is our base defense. And then you've got Matt Milano just being able to make plays along with one of the other linebackers that starts next to him. So Ed Oliver was up there for me. Diggs was, as well. But just because you guys mentioned both of them, I'll throw out some love for Matt Milano. And to Vlad's comment there in the chat, no, we all gave love for A.J. Klein in the linebacker section of this episode. We gave him his
rewind it. Before we get out of here, obviously, we haven't talked about special teams. This game from this unit actually just felt typical of this unit for the most part to me. Tyler Bass is automatic. Every time he struts out to the field, I'm very confident. I love it. He still, I don't believe, gets the praise he deserves because we're so used to it feeling automatic for him. I believe now, didn't Tucker had a miss this week? I think Bass
he did have a miss.
The best kickers in the league now.
Number one.
Oh, he might be number one in terms of percentage. I don't know. I'll have to check on that, but he's up there right now in the league. Hawk is just what he is. He's not going to wow you with anything. He was consistent today, consistently meh, and that's kind of who he is. That's fine. If he can hold kicks for Bass, I can live with meh. Isaiah McKenzie, I'm still not sold that he has great decision making.
Agreed.
There was a couple.
The one that he caught falling down when he made it more complicated than it had to.
Didn't love it. And there was one that he did let bounce that I didn't love. And the one he did let bounce and he lucked at, that was a really nice bounce and went right into his rib cage and he was able to take it. And then he had that explosive run, which he was super close to breaking, which is, we always joked about the Josh Allen experience. I think it's the Isaiah McKenzie experience where you take the good possible explosive plays with the potential freaky bad plays. And I know people, the last couple of weeks, people have said to me Nate Geary, our good friend Nate Geary, even tweeted out that he thinks that there's not even no drop off, but that we're better in the punt return game without Andre Roberts and with Isaiah McKenzie. And maybe, but like I said to him, it's more of an experience. You're going to have some good with bad, but the good's real good and a lot of fun, but that bad is still scary.
If the ball gets in his hands, he's solid.
Yes. But I'm still concerned every time a punt comes off a kicker's foot. I don't know which direction it's going in. It's either going to be an explosive 30, 40-yard return or it might get fumbled. I don't know. And so very typical day of the special teams. But nothing we can bitch about. They didn't blow anything or ruin anything for me. So that's all I've ever asked for about special teams.
Well, and if you look at, you've pointed out very well that the DVOA continues to rise. I think in a weighted, they're up to 5th overall. They're 8th.
Yeah.
And the reason is part of the epiphany that I've had. I've just simply had a moment of zen to accept the fact that I don't think punting matters as much as people want it to. And I'll give the example here. Holding for Tyler Bass is exceptionally important. Again, somebody else just brought it up here in the chat. Corey Bojorquez got yelled at again for a bad hold for a Mason Crosby miss on a field goal. We do not miss Corey Bojorquez. You then add to that, our coverage units are great. Isaiah McKenzie almost returned one for a touchdown today. We'll keep working on his decision-making, but overall he's fine. Yeah. Tyler Bass is exceptional. We cover kicks well. We cover punts well. And then when we punt, I was frustrated today. It was a 41-yard punt and a 37-yard punt. We averaged 39 yards a punt. A punt is a turnover. When we turn it over, if you look at people we're bringing up Moorhead, who is a free agent, or let's say it's the best punter in the NFL, and we go get Michael Dixon from the Seahawks or whatever it is, and they lead the league in net average and an average, and it's like 46 or 47 yards. So on that turnover, instead of kicking it 39 yards, we kick it 47 yards. We still turned it over. They get the ball on the 23 with them, or the 31 for us. Okay. I think maybe some of the pieces of it, it's just not as material of a difference as what some people want it to be. And I'm part of some people that I get more frustrated than what's necessary, because honestly, I don't know how big of a deal it is. I know that
it's the shanks. That's where it comes in.
Yes,
It's the inconsistencies.
The 19-yarders kill me in that I hate it. But if he's going to consistently hold every single time and help Tyler Bass have an all-pro season, and he had a really nice one last week. He's had a couple nice punts. He's pinned a couple deep. If he's going to be able to function feasibly there, I'm fine. I still would love to find a way to upgrade next year. I'd still love to find a way to move on. But honestly, if they don't, and we go into next year and it's just Matt Hawk and Tyler Bass again, but Tyler Bass keeps having the all-pro season, I'll live with it, and I'll just...
Tyler Bass gets points.
I'll compartmentalize it. I care more about Tyler Bass getting points than I do, Matt Hawk, when we turn it over, a punt is a turnover, when we turn it over going 5 yards further. I just don't care that much.
Yeah.
And I think there's also something to be said. I see a lot of people talking about the holding part of Hawk's game. I think there's also something to be said for his ability to hold. I think it's very interesting that, all credit to Tyler Bass, but Bass is having a very accurate season this year. Jason Sanders for the Miami Dolphins had a killer year last year, and Matt Hawk was his holder, and Sanders hasn't had a season like that before Hawk or even this year for Miami. So
he's taken a step back since he lost Matt Hawk.
Yeah, ironically. So there's something to be said for that aspect. And if I have to live with, to piggyback on your point there, Greg, if I have to live with some of the inconsistency overall, in order to be able to pay other positions, or live with that inconsistency and have close to, knock on wood, automatic kicks from Tyler Bass from any range, I'll live and die with that. It would be awesome if we had a consistent punter and a really great holder all in one package, and they all came cheap and we didn't have to pay them anything. That would be a tremendous, awesome thing. But I'd also like to have all pros at every single position on defense and offense, all of them. I'd love to have
team does. Why can't the Bills?
Right? Yeah. Why can't, I just don't get why can't we have all 32 picks in the first round? Why can't we get all of them? I'd like that.
A good point of clarity is a debate I had on Twitter a little bit ago, where someone was just completely shocked. They thought they were kind of getting me in the way they asked the question, and they said, well, yeah, but what matters more, holding or punting? And I said, no, seriously, I think I care more about holding. Yeah. I think holding matters more. And they were so shocked, like, oh, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. And you're right, Anthony. I want both. I want a good punter who is also a good holder. But, for everybody asking, how did you feel when we had 2 kickers on the roster? Because we had a kickoff specialist. We're always freaked out about roster spots and how we can get Matt Breida on the field. And we can't afford to have a holder guy and a kicker guy. And you can't afford to have your backup quarterback not running the scout team and overworking on, special teams. You need the punter and the kicker to be working every day in practice. It's simply the way an NFL roster needs to be put together. And I want both. I want my guy to be a good punter and a good holder, but I care more about points than I care about turnovers. So if I have to choose, I'll take the exceptional holder over the mediocre punter.
And can you tell us about Brian Dable's redemption song today?
What is the song?
Tell us. Redemption song.
Straight Outta Compton.
Okay.
NWA. I just think it fits. It just looked like he reminds me of NWA in a lot of ways. He had a great game today. We talked about it in the beginning. It was almost as if he spent his week not preparing and just went on social media and the internet to just read what everybody was saying. He did wrong.
Just crowdsourced his answers.
So he was
open source.
Okay, it is top 3 things. We're like, okay, run the ball more, jet sweeps with McKenzie, play action. Got it. Oh, that's funny. Let McKenzie punt. And then he played some Straight Outta Compton today and just did his thing. I liked the creativity. I liked the direction he took this offense. And I love that the first play was under center, play action. I just think that set the tone for the entire rest of the way for the Bills. And again, you're always trying to not get put into a box, and you're always trying to do whatever you can to make life difficult for the other side of the ball, whether you're the offense and you're facing a defense, whether you're a defense facing an offense. And Brian Dable had a great comment earlier this offseason where he said, if an offense executes the way it's supposed to, they cannot be stopped. The defense is always reacting to what an offense is doing. So an offensive play design, if you execute everything you're supposed to, you cannot be stopped. And the Bills executed at a high clip today, something that we talked about last week where we didn't like the play calling and the rhythm and things, but we also recognized that there was poor execution from the players' standpoint. I want to give credit to Dable for putting the players in some position to execute better this week. But credit to the players for executing the game plan. Well, that's funny. I'm just not a big Creed guy, but that's super funny. Can you take me higher from Lone Wolf? Yeah, I really want to give a shout out to Dable for what he did and turning the tide a little bit and keeping the Jets offense, or I'm sorry, their defense off balance. And then from a defensive perspective, I feel like Aaron, I think you mentioned Frazier last week, but all this talk every week seems to in and out is like, oh, Dable. And very rarely do we talk about like Leslie Frazier. And I think he's such a large part of what this defense continues to do. They continue to put up these tremendous numbers. I wish we didn't give up as many points as we did today in garbage time, just so the metrics and the numbers would look even better from a raw statistical standpoint. But it's awesome to have two coordinators who are able to funnel in with Sean McDermott and kind of circle the wagons and come out and not reinvent themselves, but refocus on what their goals are and what they need to do in order to execute. And the ability to course correct from both sides of the ball, Frazier and Dable, is a tremendous thing. Very rarely do we see the same mistakes twice, whether drive to drive or game to game, week to week. So I thought a really quality job all around from the coaching staff in preparation from this game. And I think it started, last point there, all jokes aside, I think it started when Sean McDermott footloosed practice this week and outlawed music and dancing, and nobody was allowed to do that, and set the tone for the week. And I think you saw it in the way both sides of the ball came out and executed.
Go ahead.
I thought you saw even some of that as the week went on, that it wasn't some crazy military academy in practice the rest of the week, but you did see a serious approach to it. So I thought that was good to see that, they didn't lose their culture and their setup, but they did take a serious approach.
Yeah, 2 points to sort of stack on top of what you said here. One, Leslie Frazier, really, I've been pounding the table for it. He needs to get the credit that he deserves and be in those considerations in those head coaching discussions. I can't think of many coordinators that have had more consistent success from their unit than Frazier has had here with the Bills. And I hope nobody around the league takes that seriously. I would love to keep Leslie Frazier here for the entire time Sean McDermott's here, but it's a disservice that they're doing to Frazier. I think he's really one of the best at what he does in the league, and Bills fans should be really praising him more often and having those conversations. And then 2, this week was a defining one. Greg and I talked about on the preview show. This had the potential, if they came out and were flat and let the Jets hang in this game and possibly lose this game, that had the potential to have the wheels come off the cart of this otherwise really exciting season. The Bills have a lot of pressure on them. It's a different type of beast that they're handling. A lot of people have talked about that underdog role that they had a year ago where, nobody was sure. Jo says, disagree, Aaron Frazier's terrible and should be forced to stay in Buffalo. Yes,
we should push that narrative.
I'm going to make an account that just trashes Leslie Frazier.
Yeah, he's awful.
But Sean McDermott has the leadership ability to get this right. They took a terrible loss. It was an embarrassing loss. You've seen it before where then teams would come out and press. Teams would come out and try to be something they're not, and just it can unravel your entire season. He refocused, had those honest conversations, tweaked things, got everybody playing the right way, and came out and dominated a team they're supposed to. So kudos to Sean McDermott for correcting that ship, because this could have gone off the rails. Now they're back. Yeah. They're back on the rails. They still got some work to do, but course correcting in the season on a game like this is a big.
I'll give you an example. Tampa Bay just lost back-to-back games
to
Trevor Siemian and Taylor Heineke with a bye in the middle.
Yeah,
so if you want to talk about championship expectation type teams, Tampa Bay's at the defending.
They're up there with the
Bills.
They're like number 3
there in the top 3. Highest Super Bowl likelihood. They had a bye in between and lost back-to-back games to Trevor Siemian and Taylor Heineke,
and to a Taylor Heineke led Washington team that the Bills destroyed and dominated. So put that in perspective.
So he deserves that credit.
As we kind of wrap up here, I'll give my closing thoughts first. In that, this was much needed. We kind of went back and forth on the kind of language you use for a situation like this. Is it must win? Is it season defining? Whatever you want to call it. It was a critical moment to be able to set the tone for the rest of the season. And like you said, Aaron, it either could have gone down a very dangerous rabbit hole, or it could kind of reset, let everyone take a deep breath, realize, okay, the team that we're going to face next week, Indianapolis, they had to go down to the wire with Jacksonville.
That was a close game.
Jacksonville almost won that game. It was 17-20 with Jacksonville having the ball driving at the end of the game. So that's the kind of team that is maybe turning some things around, maybe not as embarrassing as we thought last week, and is now in a position where, okay, we can take a deep breath. The wheels are not falling off here. There's way more good than there is bad. We are a flawed team. We are not a perfect team. We are not some unstoppable juggernaut. But the Bills playing their A game on a good day for them can beat every other team in the NFL, even when they're playing a good game on their A day. They're able to do that. So, Patrick, thank you very much.
We're all hitting it.
All
Yeah,
three of us trying to
took my head off.
click your message at the same time. But I mean that in full sincerity. The Bills playing their A game can beat every other team in the NFL when they are also playing their A game. And you want to know what? When the Bills bring out their C- game, they can lose to everybody in the NFL. But all I care about is, can you stack me 3 or 4 games in a row with your A game when it matters? And the Bills have that capability and that potential. And that's what I'm going to hold on to, is that they have the veteran leadership, the depth of talent, and the ability to go out there and stack those kind of games in a row, get hot at the right time, and go on a run. And that is absolutely still in play. Anthony, what are your final thoughts?
I'm happy today, which is nice because last week at this time I was not. I think today, much like last week, highlights just how much of a week-to-week league the NFL is, and how you can't get too high off of the wins and you can't get too low off of the lows. And I think the Tampa Bay point is tremendous. I think other than the Bills, I think Tampa Bay is the most complete team in the NFL in terms of offense and defense, in terms of both of those levels being solid. And again, they came off of a bye week, and they lost to a depleted Washington team that the Bills absolutely stomped. How many people were in this chat last week talking about how we're going to get destroyed by Tampa, and because we lost to the Jags, this is embarrassing. We're not going to be able to hang with Tampa, yada, yada, so on and so forth. I feel like Sandra's a little biased, but who knows? We're not going to be able to hang with Tampa. What are we going to do? Fast forward to the next week. The Bills blow out a terrible opponent, and a terrible opponent the Bills blew out just beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Think of that perspective as we move week to week. I'm not getting too tremendously excited. Oh, that's a great point from Earl. Yeah, Chase Young went out early in this game for Washington.
Most people have the Cardinals as the number 1 overall team in the NFL. They're getting smoked 23-0 right now.
And Cam Newton went out after that second touchdown. It's been PJ Walker the rest of the time.
Colt McCoy doesn't have the magic this week like he did for Arizona last week, apparently, and neither does Connor. It's a week-to-week league, so don't look past this Jets game or after this Jets game and be like, oh my God, we're back. We're the best team in the league. Let's see what we have continuing to go forward. But again, don't get too low off the losses. Don't get too high off the wins. It'll be nice to see. Oh, that is funny. Yeah, they did lose to a team with no name, the Washington football team. We'll see what happens next week. I think Indianapolis is a good test. I think they're a better team than people give them credit for. And they're very physical. And that next game the week after, the Saints are still a good football team. They got screwed a little bit against Tennessee today with some of the calls that went against their way that allowed Tennessee to get some touchdowns. That's a good team. They get up for those Thanksgiving games. They've hosted multiple Thanksgiving games. Their defense is filled with attitude and skill. That's going to be a really tough matchup. So it'll be nice to have a couple of not statement games over the next couple of weeks, but a couple more games to really show us what this Buffalo Bills team is as we continue to move forward. And I think it's something to watch for because, Greg, I think you're spot on. Like when this Bills team plays their A game, I think they're the best team in the NFL. Granted, a lot of teams can say that, but I think if any other team plays their best game and the Bills play their best game, I don't know who's beating the Bills.
Yeah, my final thought is, one, great to get back after that. There was a small sliver of me that was concerned, hey, the wheels can come off of this. And losing back-to-back games is a real indicator that things can go wrong and go south fast. So being able to get that past them and get this win, huge. Again, keeps them, it's an AFC win. It's an AFC East win. Still has the potential to run the AFC East here again this year, although the Patriots are looking like a bit of a concern, at least to me.
They're going to be a tough team.
And getting right here before this is, the Bills have an easier schedule than a lot of teams. But this is really the meat and potatoes of the regular season schedule here coming up, Ant, that you hit on. You have Indy, who I think is a physical team, and they have a reason to play the Bills hard after putting them out of the playoffs a year ago. And then New Orleans is a team nobody's really sure who they are, but I think that Patriots matchup's going to be harder than people think. And obviously Tampa, even though they lost, Tampa's still going to be a hard out no matter what, right? But the only thing I disagree with you here on is I think the Bills, again, I don't think there's any one clear-cut favorite of best team right now in the NFL, but I do think the Bills are the most complete team. I think the offensive line's a little weak, especially in comparison to Tampa, but I think defensively, I tweeted about it. It won't happen because they gave up those garbage touchdowns, but I tweeted that they might break Football Outsiders DVOA this week before they give up those garbage touchdowns. Like, this defense is legitimately the best defense in the NFL. And I think the Bills have legitimately on par with anybody, the best playmakers on offense in the NFL. And so they have a weakness and they're flawed like every other team, but I do think they're the most complete unit going forward. And we'll see here. This next month of football is really going to be defining to me of who this team is, because then I think they can cruise. Once they get past this month of football, I think they can stack some nice wins together going into the playoffs. But the difference in their record of, we talked, hey, maybe they will lose 2 more games this year after that, but that's going to come in this stretch here. If they're going to drop a game or 2, it's coming in this stretch. And if not, they might end up a 14, 15 win type team.
Yeah, I think that they're in a position here where, this next stretch, Colts, Saints, Patriots, Buccaneers, that's going to decide an awful lot. They're still in position to be able to be somewhere between a 12 and a 14 win team.
Right.
And I think, this also shows they're very much still in it for the number 1 overall seed. I think that Tennessee almost dropping a game to Jacksonville shows the flaws that they have there. And don't get me wrong, they keep banking wins. They keep finding ways to win a game. Those count. All those wins count, and they've gone through a really tough gauntlet of a stretch in their season. They also showed some flaws in their team, and I think that it's important to be there. The chat was awesome tonight. You guys were fantastic. Our sponsors, thank you to Cover One or to Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code Cover One. Get yourself $10 free if your fantasy season is not going that well and you want to redraft a new team for a week. Check it out on Underdog Fantasy. It's a lot of fun. Make sure you're enjoying Uncle Jumbo's. Do so responsibly, like I did today, enjoying the bombsicle in the post game show here. And if you're looking for a vehicle, make sure you check out our friends at Herr, the largest dealership group in New York State. It's been a lot of fun here. These win post-game shows are so much more fun than the losses. But on behalf of Anthony Prohaska and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we